Alright, I'm going to make a little forest editor video here. I was going to make a video about missions and AI races, but unfortunately the AI isn't very good and the drag races didn't turn out as good as they should have, so I kind of put my AI racing and mission videos on the back burner. I have some cool footage, but we're going to hold off on that. So let me kind of run over this forest editor thing. And if you're coming into this stuff brand new and you're trying to paint trees, your brain isn't going to wrap around how it works. You think about trees, right? You think about trees, they're just simply instances on a surface of an object. So if you take, like, say, your plane, you have a plane, it's subdivided, divide it, say, a whole bunch of times. You scale it up, whatever. So there's your Utah map, or your template map, or what have you. So if you think about a terrain, this is all a terrain is, right? You have a terrain, and the terrain can be shaped, etc. If you basically want to shape it, you can do things like that. You can chop your video so it's shorter. You can, grab things. You can paint on it. You can deform the terrain, all good stuff like that, right? That's easy to understand. But what is a forest? What is a tree, right? What is it? How does a tree get on there? So if you think about what a tree is simply an instance, a particle instance on a point, or a set of points even. You can have them on multiple points. So if you just kind of see it in action, you have some hair, yada yada, and now we have some trees. It's hair, but you have some trees. So if you wanted to, you can change what displays here in render. You can change it to any object. You can basically, these are just instances on a point, essentially. So you can do other things. You can change their density, you can change, they can be affected by wind because it's a particle system. If I added forces, I could blow these around like hair, and then the instances can also inherit those attributes. Like if the trees could shape, they could bend, and different things can happen based on that. If I wanted to add more trees, say, to that, all you'd have to do is it's a quick process as far as the mathematical formulas to get it all working in the game, as far as how it actually works. So all I need to do is basically assign oh, object mode. Now you can see it was a quick process. Now I have trees on those vertices. So if you think about the painting, how you paint on terrain, that's basically how it works, right? Here's my little tree. So if you think about your cylinder, so if you think about your particle system, now I just want it to look like cylinders and trees, right? So you would just simply add the render to be that. So if I go render, render as object, instance object, cylinder. Oh, and another thing just to visualize. So you can change things like the density, if you wanted more trees in the area, uh, and then also things like in Blender though. So here's the other piece that really doesn't. So this piece doesn't work in the game like it should. So this is a caveat that you need to be kind of where it exists. So if I did deform the terrain, I kind of did that. Go back to object mode. Oh, yeah, you can kind of see. Let me do that again here. Try and grab this terrain. So I'm deforming terrain, and you can kind of see the hair and, well, trees still follow the terrain. Now, that does not actually work in the game. If you deform terrain after adding trees, you really need to delete the trees. There's some caveats. So the whole wrap your head around for anybody who's advanced looking at this. Why does it do that, you wonder? Well, there's a couple reasons actually. So if you're looking at, say, an object like a single plane without a particle system. But if you're looking at a plane and you do things in object mode, like you scale it, the scale needs to be applied. If you make anything bigger, I need to apply scale to make it reset to 1. If I do this in edit mode and I just scale it up, if I go back to the scale, notice I don't have to apply it, you know? So in the game, there's no toggling between object mode and edit mode. That also extends to your terrain. In order to make your terrain bigger, from what I understand, what I found, you have to export, or rather import a brand new terrain. So let me move on to the game, and this is a good time to, I just wanted to show kind of like, if you're like, oh man, I'm painting trees, I just don't know how this works. So if you look at a wind force, like some kind of a force that would be blowing your trees, you can't have uh, a force on anything except for like a particle system. So in order for like trees to have wind effects and different intensities of wind, they need to be instances. And instances are just simple particle systems with objects rendered, and you can change things dynamically, like the density and where they're sitting, so if I wanted to say add more trees over here, in addition to the current trees I have, I just have to basically assign it in the game. At least that's the logic. So now there's trees here, and that's the equivalent of you painting. So if you've ever struggled wrapping your head, that's how that works. And just finally to touch on why you can't make a terrain bigger in game, it's basically because, so if you say the origin is right here in the center, if I move it, the origin follows. I can't apply scale in theory, in the game. You have to actually re-export it. You can only apply scale in your external software. So if I go to, edit mode and I move it, notice how the origin stays the same. So the way object mode and edit mode is different in a couple ways, and that will help wrap your head around why you can't make a terrain bigger in game, or why the origin's off in the sky, or just a bunch of weird things that you wouldn't normally understand. So here's my template map I'm going to be working on. Unfortunately, this isn't my terrain file, so I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to upload this map. I just use this as my own testing ground. Now, if you wanted to, it's a very simple process. All I did was paste this terrain file into my root directory. I renamed the terrain file here to match my map folder name. And then there was a couple things I renamed in the main root directory. If you followed my previous videos, it shouldn't be that hard to get it going on your end if you felt like doing it. And the beauty of this is when I brought this in, not only was the process very easy, but the terrain mapping stuff already came over. So if I go to my terrain painter, you can see it right here. I have grass, beach sand, and I added asphalt in a previous video, but the grass, for example, already works, right? Beach sand already works, and so very interesting, very quick. If you're ever struggling with terrain and can't get a terrain bigger or on your map, it's pretty easy if you use a terrain that already exists. If you wanted to make that specific terrain bigger, you would have to use an external software. So let's get down to the forest tool. Let me just find a little area. Anywhere would work. I'm just gonna I was gonna just make like a little section, but it's probably a good time to show what the template map comes with by default, which it isn't much. So when you first start messing around, you notice there's no brushes. So let's go ahead and just add one. I'm going to add a new brush group. There's none, so say yes. I'm just going to add also a new element. So the elements are what allow you to pick from the list of trees. So if you open up your inspector, the element has some settings here. I'm not going to go through them, but the slope max is a good one to mess with, because that'll, when you have a big slope on your terrain, that can help you adjust if things aren't aligning or you don't want them showing. There's a lot of customization you can do. Scale min, scale max. You have a different things you can like make them, you can just change the appearance essentially. And these trees will have collisions and they'll all be affected by the forest wind, which I guess is a good time to show you the scene tree, which has forest wind emitter, and then you have some settings in here too. I'm not going to go through them, but gust frequency, like there's so many things you can adjust. So there's your forest wind emitter. Feel free to play around. I'm not really seeing anything that stands out, but again, they all have their own unique ID in there. Spectre window, you have the forest. So this is the actual forest. This is basically just what drives your instances and all your forest stuff. So don't worry about this too much. But the reflection scale, not really sure. I've never messed with that, but it could be worth if the far clip distance when forest renders into a reflection. I don't know. Could be worth checking. If you're seeing weird things with your forest items, could be worth, you know, like pixelation or some weird artifacts, could be worth toggling or tweaking the setting. So that's important. So let me just show what the forest tool kind of does. So if I do have an element, here's my item data. All I got to do is look in my list, and basically you have by default, you got that. You know, you can make it bigger. Then you have this. That's really it. So you ask yourself, how do I add more to this guy? Well, let's try that. So really all I think I need, if you go to your art, forest, you have this managed item data, and you can pretty much see that this houses the reference for the DAE file. Now in the event that I wanted to take this from, say, East Coast, this is going to reference the East Coast map. So the thought process is if I go to East Coast right here and I go to forest and I look at the managed item data, same thing. Let me move this off to the side here so it's 2. Alright, so here it is. So the managed item data from East Coast right here. Let's just add one thing. I just want to add, let me add some clovers and let me just add a container. Just to be funny. And so basically all I got to really do is I have to match the structure with the commas and the end brackets. So all I'm going to do is just plop it right in the beginning. Should be fine. Make sure that has a comma. See how that has no comma. So let me save that. Let's go back to the game. And you can kind of think of these little DAE files as these are just the instances. So this would be like the cylinder in the beginning of the video. Like, what do you want to instance on every one of these little points that I have given density to? You know, oh, I want it to be a container. I want it to be a churro brush small or what have you. So let's just test it. So if I go to my forest tool, back to my element, go to my list, now you can see I have other things. Now, when I add these, I might have to add the material as well, but let's see what it actually does. So I do need to add the material. So that's the first step you need to do. So let's go to the material side of things. So in the case of the managed item data, it knows where the DAE file is, but it still doesn't know where the material is. So all I need to do is tell it where to find the material stuff. And once I do that, then the materials will instantly work. And it's actually rather simple. So let me just scooch this out of the way. I'm just going to basically be looking at the East Coast materials file, which should be in the art shapes trees. So trees folder. So when I do this, all I really need is the main material file. I don't need all the data. So what I might just do, the easiest way is probably just go like this. If I just copy this entire thing and I just put it right here, art, shapes, trees, and I just paste it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and delete. Oh wait, that's a duplicate. That's supposed to go. Let me see here. Let me sift through and see which ones I need. I'm essentially just going to create new folders for each of these, and I'm basically just going to keep the main material file. Now, this is the quickest way. There's probably other ways, but I mean, you could probably just find the main and like do that. I'm just going to like this though. So let me just build this. Alright, so it's done. Just to go into them. So all I did was take the, that was already there. So I just took the main material from each of those tree folders. Where are they? All these. So let's just go one by one. Common, had that, and now I just have that. East Coast bush, same thing. So I'm just basically keeping the main material in my folder. So Italy, same thing. That had a bunch of stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm really just referencing, I'm saying, hey, look in this folder so you can find the materials for your missing object, if that makes sense. So you don't need the data of the materials in your own folder, you know. So Aspen, that's all basically how that looks. So I realized that that was there already, so don't worry, that's small, but I realized my container example was not a good example because the materials that drive it aren't going to be in your trees folder, they're going to be in your buildings. So what I did was, to test some things, I put some main materials into two random one random folder, maybe another one. So the idea is that the material JSON just has to be present. I don't know if it has to be present in a specific folder necessarily. Alright, so in the case of this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the information from the main material files, and I'm just going to get that information over to my trees folder that's in my map. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to edit the first one. I'm just going to snip all this stuff, everything, Control C, and then I'm going to open up the one here. Basically, I'm just going to do, in the beginning, I'm going to do Control V. I'm going to put a comma right here. So now that's comma, comma, and then comma, has no comma. So save that, Control S, close, let me get this cleared. So that's that file. This file should now be updated with all of that. We're just going to test it, we'll see if it works. The theory is I want to add to that material file. Alright, so my container is still messed up, but let's see what my new brush might do. So if I go back to Clovers, what do they do? Let's see. Oh, so no material. So what am I? Alright, so this is a case where the Clovers are pulling materials from the East Coast ground cover folder. So what I need is I'm going to need the material file here being present. It probably doesn't matter where. Like if I just went new folder and just said, you know, EC flowers, and I just copied that. Let's see what it does. Paste. So you can see these are super small, so like doing this doesn't take a lot of memory. So let's just test it one more time. So as you can see, after restarting, my clovers are clovers. So let's see if we can add a couple more. I know you don't want just clovers, so let's see what we got to do to add a few more. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this list. So we're just going to rinse and repeat basically with that mission items list and just keep building it. So let's do more. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically take, so if I go to the art forests, manage item data, I'm basically just going to take everything else, more or less. I'm going to add it to mine. So I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom, copy in all this stuff, copy, go to mine, and then in this case I'm just going to paste it probably where it was at the end here. So I'm just going to, don't mess that line up, but if I enter backspace, Control V, give it a comma. Always got to have that comma so that it keeps going down the list. If there's not a comma here, accidentally it'll give you an error. So we'll save that. And then to fix the container, you'll just need the main material file from this location. You'll notice the miscellaneous folder. I didn't go in there, so I just need to go to art, shapes, miscellaneous. Really all I need is the main material stuff, so I'm just going to copy that. And I'm just going to put it wherever for now. I mean, I like to keep them the same. See, like, I don't have a miscellaneous, so I'm just going to do a new one. It doesn't have to be named that. I could just name it whatever, really. As long as the main material is there in the map, it loads all of the main materials when it loads the map. So any main material file you have in there, it could be, that's why you don't want to keep backup folders of main materials in your map because it just loads them all. And basically every one gets loaded in memory and hey, all my materials are loaded. So it doesn't matter where you put it really, usually. Some things could be finicky, but generally. Alright, this is one of those weird scenarios that I don't know why, but maybe the main material somewhere else. But if you ever find yourself fiddling around with one item that just doesn't want to seem to jive, yeah, so you can see in the original main material file in there as well, they have it pathing to the local color map and normal map. So that might be a situation where I would maybe put those in my map, but for the sake of saving space and not having to do that for every single one, I think I'm just going to tailor this to match wherever that sits. So I guess that would be sitting in, so they're sitting in this miscellaneous folder. So all I got to do is basically take this entry and insert it into my main material. So I'm just going to go like this. It's kind of a quick rough fix, but should work just fine. So if I go color map, Control V, says it like that. Normal map, Control V, specular map, Control V, whatever it's looking for. Same thing here, although container B isn't doing anything. I don't know what's up with container B. I'm just going to leave it as is and save it for now, and let's test it. So you can see that fixed my containers. Let's just see what the brushes do now. So if I, add a new brush group, add a new element, you kind of can add other things. So now my list is pretty big. So some of these won't actually, I don't know, some of them you'd have to go through and like see if they work. Like if you click something and nothing comes up, sometimes things will paint, but maybe not actually paint, but they'll be invisible. So anyway, containers work. They all are textured. Everything in that list should work. Now I don't know if buildings won't work. But again, I don't like painting invisible things, so just be wary of that. Like the houses won't. Oh, they do. Okay. Oops. But I mean, you can go pretty far with this. So like, I don't want to spend a ton of time, but if I had like a terrain I shaped, brushes, the main thing you want to do is just go through your trees. Make sure that they have textures. Make sure that when you zoom out, that the textures don't go orange when you go zoom out. That goes for everything, including like rocks. Let's see. So if I type rock, you get a couple rocks in here. See, the rocks aren't actually textured, so I have to fix that. Let me fix that separately. All these rocks usually have to be done through the rocks folder. See how the LODs, sometimes you have LODs that work. That will fix in a sec. But the trees should all work here based on what we've done. So let me, daisies. You always want to zoom out on the daisies. Make sure that they don't have no material on the LODs. Same with the houses really. All that stuff, if you zoom out, that looks okay. So it's really just the rocks, I think, that are not working. Garbage. Yeah, garbage is also not working. That's probably in the clutter folder. So there's some items that you'd have to like kind of fix independently. Bushes. The materials on some of these aren't going to be in your tree folder. So oak works. Most of these should, everything that is in that tree folder should work. So in theory, all the bushes. There was one though, maritime, was it? There was some of these give you weird issues, but you have to go through them. If you notice something, you just have to address it independently. So let's just fix these rocks. Alright, so for the rocks, we're just looking in rocks in the East Coast map. I don't have rocks, so I'm just going to create it. Rocks. I'm just going to see what's in here, which is just a main material. I'm just going to copy that only. paste. I'm just going to look at it though. Trying to make sure nothing's like, yeah, that looks pretty good, I guess. So let's see, make sure that's saved actually. Yeah, looks good. Let's go test it again. So you can see the rocks are good now. And I think I want to look at my garbage sacks. What is that? Those are rocks? Mossy rocks. So if I go to garbage bin, it's probably not going to work. So what I'll do, bottle, let me just get some stuff so I can see it. Let me go back to my, so garbage is another instance where the pathing is going to the same local folder, so I'm just going to go, it exists in miscellaneous again, so I'm just going to do the same thing for garbage like I did before with the color map, normal map, specular, save it. Sometimes you can avoid this if you just scroll down through the list, see this floodlight. I'm just going to do that since I'm here looking at it. Normal and color. So that should fix that. Again, you'll have to go one by one sometimes, but let's try it. Still not working. Let's check further. So I'm just checking mine, and I realized I didn't actually save any changes. I don't know how, but somehow the changes did not save. So I'm just going to do it again. For the garbage. That should be good now. Save. Alright, yeah, I just simply didn't save. Just so you know, I am reloading the game every time. It's the only way to work. So that should fix everything for that. Alright, in the case of where you still have like buildings missing materials, a couple things you should know how to fix it. So the first thing to note is you can't see the item in the inspector. It's only going to give you the forest information because it's just an instance. It's not an actual DAE file in your map. So what you're going to need to do is you're actually going to need to look at the DAE file in order to solve this missing material. In these cases, you'll have objects with more than one material, and one of them might still be missing the material JSON. So this is a case where I think it's in the buildings folder. I didn't go into buildings to move those over. So let's take a look at the DAE and see what's controlling this. And in cases like this, the only way I can really tell which object it is if I go to the forest tool that I have selected. I'm going to have to make a mental note of this Shoptown item as well as the sign. So let me go back into that. And then another way you can actually find it is if you go to the ManagedItemData.json, you open it, you can go down to the sign. That tells you where it sits. So there's my DAE file. That's the first piece I need. So if I go to East Coast, Art, Shapes, Buildings, the sign should be in here. So what I'm going to do is open the edit the DAE file. You're going to notice at the bottom there are a boatload of materials. So all of these, those are the same as these. So all of these materials, basically everything excluding the dash material, so like this, that's a material, that's a material. So what I would need is the material JSON for that, which is right here. So it's right here. It's in the same folder as the DAE file. If I wanted, I could bring the DAE file by itself into my map. For this example, I'm just going to copy the main material, and I'm just going to put it in. So in here I have no buildings. I'll just make one and put it right in there. The folder doesn't have to be that. Oh, I'll just say buildings and put it right here. And let's try it. Okay, and it's still not working, so this is an instance where I'm going to bring in all of the DAE files to observe them in game to see which ones are missing. Alright, so I'm going to bring it in so I can look in the materials asset browser. Let me go to where I have it, which is boom. So this one is Shoptown B. So let me bring it in. I have it. Just interesting to note, if you delete one from your Explorer window, they will get deleted here, but you can't add them. You have to restart the game for that. So let me bring it in. So now you can see I can kind of click it and like do other things to it. What I'm really looking for is the shape editor. So I'm trying to figure out on this object which is responsible for that material, and you can see there's a whole ton of them, but sometimes I can go through. So if I click this tin, so now what's going on? So here's the logic behind this step. So if I click here and I see it appear in the material editor, I know the JSON is there. I know that there's a material name driving that in my JSON file. If that material file did not exist, I would click this glass transparent and this name right here wouldn't say glass transparent. Another example, if I click roof tiles and the material JSON was missing, I would see that this was not showing roof tiles. So that's how you can go through. So I know now that the material JSON file is there. However, what's happening is it's pointing probably to a material that doesn't exist. So let's go back to the JSON. All right, so I just opened this and let me scooch that. So I'm just looking for ECA build. I'll just type modern, see what I get. So I can see the color map again, well, the color map is going directly to my local folder in this example. So here's another instance. Let me, and it's also interesting to note that this entry for the overlay map, you'll see it does actually go to East Coast, but for some reason, the other textures are basically just saying go to the local folder for that material. So this is just a case where I just need to go copy this. I'm just going to basically point it, paste it right here. So we're just pointing it to right there, telling it to go to buildings, not my map. Because right now it's trying to go to my map to find those colors, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to say go to East Coast buildings. So I think that's it. Let me just scroll down. See, there's another one. See, this needs to be added. There's a few of them in here. Alright, let's save it and try it. Alright, so for some reason it's still pointing at template 2. I don't understand. Alright, I found the issue. The reason why my thing was still trying to go to template 2, when I was messing around earlier, I created these little building folders, and when I did that, that entry has it already exists somewhere else, so I think they were stomping on each other. So what I'm going to do, since I am adding a buildings folder, I basically don't really need these two. These are just little test dummies. So I'm basically just going to delete these. So now you can see my modern corrugated tin still works, and it's correctly pathed to the East Coast USA folder, just like the first two. That's how I wanted it originally. It took me a little digging to figure out why it wasn't working, but let's move on to the video with the assumption that I didn't fix it yet, because in the video they're all going to be no texture, but that's how you fix that. Same for the sign. And just so you can see it, so you're not totally confused with the shape editor, if I bring in the sign as a DAE file, again, notice I can't click on anything else. The sign I can click on because it's a DAE. So if I do look at the materials, what I'm looking for with the material editor open, I want to click this. I want to make sure that these come up. See how that's not coming up? Doors, it's not coming up. That's not coming up. So it tells me that there's no material JSON in my levels folder. That's why these aren't coming up. And if you compare that to something like this, see how they do come up? So that makes me know that it's missing the material file. So it's probably in a buildings folder somewhere. The way to know would be, go to here, take a gander at the material file, take a gander at the DAE file, see what materials it's looking for. You can even look them in here. If you want to use this as a reference, you can find them. I'm not really going to go into that because in this video, because it would be very long. See how this is art shapes null? You might have to actually make that say whatever color map it's supposed to be. There's some funny caveats with the signs. You can get them to work though if you use the same methodology. Look at the DAE file in Notepad+, go down, see what materials it's looking for, and you can copy them that way, or look them in here. And try and find the material.json that's referencing that, and just take a look and see where it's pathing. If it's needing the color maps and it's pathing to a place where they don't exist, there's your solution. But should be able to get it done with what I've shown you so far. So let's move on. So all the tools work. Way to get some cool stuff. So if you do a new element, you can pretty much build this list. Oak's cool. Oak, I love my oak trees. You got some big ones in here. There's a bunch of big ones. Not that. Big trunkers. Large A, yeah, those guys are cool. The large C, yeah, those are cool. But yeah, to play with some of these settings like these in the inspector, I think only impact that brush. So if I had this, say, set to oak large C, and I messed with my scale min and set it to like 0.1, what would that do? Anything? Maybe not. Do I get any small ones? Oh yeah, do I? Should get some small ones if I did some stuff like that. Probability. Yeah. This probability is 1, but also your pressure density right here would affect that. So probability should always be 1. Rotation range 360, yeah. So the scale min, scale max, I guess scale exponent, I'm not sure. Bias. I guess you can mess with that. What happens if I did 5? I don't know. So I guess you can get some pretty different looks. Now, if I added a new brush element and went back to oak, the same tree, large, did the same thing, my scale mins, scale maxes are reset to what they normally would be. So it's kind of cool. Like if you wanted some, say, certain kind of tree to have a certain, scale min, scale max, and then you wanted the same tree on a different brush, you can actually have different brush settings, and not worry that you're messing stuff up for the whole global tree. That's not going to be the case. So, all these slope mins, slope maxes, like that, see how this is 90? You can actually change that, that would affect like if your terrain is, on a big slope, like a big slope terrain, and you're trying to paint some trees on it, you know, is it going to allow that? So that's a 90. So if I said slope max 20, what would it do? Doesn't even paint, see? So now if I said a slope max 100, well, I guess that's not 100, but see how 100 might give you some weird stuff, but what was it? 90 was the default. So if I, create a new brush, same tree, it's gonna give me the default values. So slope max, I'll just leave it at 90. I mean, you can try things like, if you wanted to restrict it from not painting on slopey terrain, you could do that, but I find the defaults are good enough. Elevation, same with elevation, all these things. Go back to object mode so you can look around again. So I don't really know if there's anything to talk about regarding the forest wind emitter. So I'll just show you the settings. You can change things. I don't know how far I can show, but let me see. But you can see the wind strength. I don't know if that would, see how it kind of gets crazy. Some of these values I think do change dynamically based on the game. I don't know, but gust strength. You can basically make your map very unique in a lot of different ways. That's the wind emitter, or you raise, your terrain height. If you lower your terrain, the forest tools, you'll just have to delete them. So if you haven't figured that out already, the only way to manipulate terrain after you've placed brush items is to delete. So normally I would do things like dirt. I'd have some dirt and whatever, pebbles, but for the sake of argument, I'm just going to do like something like this. So let's add a little river. I'm just gonna set the default width to like something massive. So let's just go like this. Again, you can look at the node position, make sure they're the same if you want them level first to start. Same thing as the roads. So I usually use the lateral arrows just to kind of make sure they're where I want them. I'll do Control A. We can even set it to 100 for this. And then if I hold Shift, you can grab them. Oh, Control Z. Hold Shift, grab, get a new node. You can change the width on that to something smaller. That kind of thing. You can even make it go down. Hold Shift, grab, same thing. Shift, grab, kind of that. So if I'm just going to add a couple forest items. You know, like, what was it, house? What's a store fish? Oh, no material. Still no material on some of this, but whatever. For a little example. Oh, yeah, police station never has a material. Da, da, da. Whatever. Just wanted to see some detail with the rivers. See, that's the other problem, is there's no way to rotate the house once you place it. Like, it's like, it doesn't really have now you might be able to restrict this rotation range to like say 10. Now if I hit it every time, it'll probably stay within that, but I don't know how to set that rotation. So you know, if I set 50 on the rotation range, now every time they place, you know, it might stay within that 50-degree angle, but oh, did it not save? Oh, sometimes let's say 50. Did that even save? See how they kind of say now they place similar, but I'm not going to go into that. It's one of the limitations. I was just trying to talk about the rivers. So if I just paint some trees, just so you can see them in the reflection. Oh, weird. Yeah, pretty good. All right. So let's look at the water. Actually, might even be better if I put some trees over here, so you can kind of see. Maybe another house. Sure. Oh my god, a million houses. Alright, so if I go to my river editor and I click the river, go over here, see some things, a bunch of things. There's a lot of things you can change with your rivers, but I'm really just gonna, I guess, look at the ones that I really use and the things that would really make it better. So the first thing you see, look at the reflections of these houses and the trees. See how bad it is? So we're gonna fix that first. Where is it? Reflect. It's the reflect text size. This is the reflection texture size, so I guess you would look at it as pixels. So if I usually go up to 1024. That'd be the highest I would go. See how it immediately makes it look better. You can go like 2048. It doesn't really make it look that much better, and the performance hit might not be worth it, so I look at 512. It doesn't look that good. So in a lot of cases I'll stick with 1024. So we'll leave that like that for now. That looks pretty good. So once I stage this river, I can basically copy these settings to another river easily, just with Control C, Control V. But let me just look at some of this. So I don't mess with that. I don't mess with that. Yeah, experimental stuff. But the like density, so this will affect the buoyancy. You'll notice 1,000 is like the default. So if I wanted something that had more velocity reduction, I might want to increase this number to say like 2,000. Like if I wanted it to be like a thick oil, I would say 2,000 probably on that density. But this viscosity, I don't know how these tie in. So there might be a case where you can just change the viscosity to like 5 or 2 and leave the density. So you'd have to play around with those two numbers. Liquid type water, don't ever change that. I don't know that there's any other liquid type that's supported in the game. I think water is the only one. Water is defined and used. Only water is defined and used, so don't worry about changing that from anything. You can change the base color, you know, like we can basically change the color to whatever. Whoop, go back to it. I don't mess with the Fresnel bias. You can change the Fresnel power though. But all that really does is change like the noise texture on the water, like Fresnel power. Maybe that's not that, I don't know. I usually don't mess with it, but specular I don't mess with. I mean, I don't ever notice a change, so I just leave it. Emissive, I never change that. I mean, you can always experiment to get a good look out of it, but emissive, I don't know if that makes it emit light. It's not natural for water to emit light, so I would think water should only reflect light. So the fact that it's brightening the light here makes me think that's the correct way of looking at it, so I just leave it off. Okay, so wave magnitude does kind of give you some stuff, but it's more of the big waves, like not the little ripples, but the big waves. Some of this you can't really tell, but that would impact like the ocean. That definitely you would notice. Ripple magnitude on these you'll notice, so 0.1 is what it's at, so that's a 1, you know, could leave it at 0.5 if I wanted more. 0.1 is pretty cool if you're just in like a little pond. If you want to see some like still reflections, and you can see the reflections change based on the ripple magnitude, so whatever. But if it's like a rushing river, you probably want that. Now there's some videos online about some folks making some cool stuff happen with the rivers, like where they launch the cars. I forget which value that ties into, but I'm not doing that. I'm just making them look like rivers for now. But the foam texture can be changed, but I don't really see a reason. I mean, you can always play with that, but foam opacity would be like they kind of do these like weird edges to it. Sometimes it's cool for it's like a rushing river. Not something you necessarily want on a little pond. Foam depth. You could always mess with that in conjunction with the, see how it kind of changes the depth, so it makes it look a little different depending. I mean, you never, you always get a different look. These settings can be copied. 50, so look, 50 is kind of bringing it out more, making it all milky, but you can always play with that. Foam ambience, never really mess with these too much, but they give you enough uniqueness. Foam ripple influence is at 0.05, so you can always mess around, make small changes. There's the little change, 0.5. You can kind of see ripple influence is making some stuff happen. whereas the default value is pretty small. Now I don't know how much that'll affect performance, but you can always toggle through that if you wanted it real crazy, along with your, ripple magnitude. Whoa, I don't know. Could be cool for a nice dynamic looking river. So reflectivity, some stuff in here like how much of the light is reflected. Now, I don't know. There's so many, it should be some fall off. You should never have one reflection. I mean, that's almost the other setting I was looking at. So 0.5 looks good. Don't mess with that. I just leave that. That's the text size. So that's 1024 now. You can always mess with that. I don't go above 1024 generally, just for performance sake. Now water fog. Some of these settings, if you wanted to make your stuff look like oil, water fog. But yeah, 0.1 look cool for that. Water fog density 2, 5. If you want to make it look less milky or whatever, I don't know. 10. Yeah, kind of. That looks cool. The wet depth, I've messed with that before. What was it? 0.1. No. Yeah, maybe not. Wet darkening. Yeah, that was it. If I wanted to make like a milky oil or dark oil, I guess, you could crank the viscosity or tweak these. You can make it completely like glass. Wet darkening, what was it? Whoa, not what I wanted. Yeah, some of these values, if you crank them way too high, you get some pretty weird results that aren't so favorable, but sometimes these defaults are probably the best, but yeah, whatever. What else? And the only other real thing is don't worry about the sound ambience, because that you can't change that. Just make your own sound blocks. So when it comes to sounds and particles and all that good stuff, all you'd be really dealing with is adding object. You can add sound emitters. You can add particle emitters. The particles, you can hold shift and duplicate them. You can control C usually and control V them around to each other, but the like steam, what is it? The bottom, just go to the bottom. So like steam, maybe. Oh, yeah, that's the wrong thing. Can't change that. So when you have the emitter, you just have to go from the top emitter. That's the only one you can change. If you change the bottom, you have to delete the emitter. The steam, like spray short, if you duplicate that, hold shift, it'll duplicate the effect. You can do Control Alt click. It'll paste them wherever you want them. That's pretty cool. Same with sound blocks, I think. Yep. Control Alt click. I can duplicate sound blocks. So basically with the sound blocks, you'll just be looking at changing the track only. Don't worry about the other setting. And there's a lot of settings in here, and not all of them work. But that works. Like Italy works. Italy water. Do different. There's all kinds. You have to go through them. But so that's a couple tricks with that, and then the same copy and paste works with the river editor. So if I had a new river, and alt click. Let's say I wanted this to be on that. So what if I did Control C, click here, Control V. So it changes some of the things. It doesn't change the node width, but it'll pretty much change most of the stuff. So that's pretty much, I think, all I got. Alright, to end this video, I want to kind of go over the clouds. There's some cool stuff you can do and really make your clouds pop. You can make them animate, but before I do that, I just want to quickly go over some of these. Some of these things have some neat little tricks that I found throughout my time in here. So the first thing I want to look at is the time of day in your scene tree. That has some interesting things. Some of these I don't really mess with. Like the day length right now is a default of 1800, and you can see the start time of .15. So every time I launch into my map, it's going to start it at that time of day, which I think is like early morning. So you can think of this as like counting up, and then 1800 it'll basically go back to 0. I guess you could look at it like that. So you can modify that. Obviously this play button is relevant to what you see in the gameplay menu. And then the day and night scale. So if you wanted to say have like a really long day and a short night, you can do that. And this gives you a little bit more granular control than you would see in like the gameplay options. So if I wanted to do like 2.1, you know, I could do that. You know, in the gameplay it's like big numbers like 5, 10 or whatever. Big round numbers is all you get, but in the world editor you get some more flexibility. So that covers that. So let me go over to the level info here. So there's a couple settings you should be aware exist if you don't know that they exist. So you have your visible distance. That's literally just, you know, you can think of it as your visible distance. That's good enough. But some of these I don't ever mess with. The visible distance I'll go as high as like 6,000. But I won't really go any higher than that. 4,500, you could look at the default maps and see what they're set to and use that as a rough gauge for your map terrain size. So gravity, that's Earth's gravity. I've messed around. I could set this to like 9.83 if I wanted a little more gravity. You can go crazy on it, but that's what that is. So to understand that, if you wanted to go -10, that would be more gravity than Earth. You know, -9 would be less gravity than Earth, if that makes sense. So this is Earth's gravity. If you look it up, it's 2.87, I don't know, or 2.89 something, but they round it up to make this value, so it's okay. It seems to work. You can go higher if you want more grip with your roads. So fog density, you can mess with that. Let's see what else. The global environment map, just leave that as the second one. I've tried all of these and none of them are any better, so I just leave it at that. Sound ambience, I always set to none because I always use sound spaces and sound blocks. Haven't done a video on that, but there's plenty of that, I think, out there. I think that's all I would mess with in this menu. And before I get to clouds, let me just run over SunSky briefly. There's a video I'm going to put in my description from, I forget his name on his channel, but he talks about how to make the game look better in F11. And this is the menu he goes through. There's a lot of stuff you can do in SunSky. So much that I don't want to spend much time on it, but I do want to just kind of point. There's a couple things that I would do, like the colorize amount. That's the sky I meant with it. I'm looking at this for the sun. Where is it? Let's see. As you can see, there's lots of settings. There's so many settings. I've pretty much messed with all of them. There's a couple here that I really want to run over here, which is like this text size of the shadows. I guess let me touch on that very first because that's probably the most important, I guess. But that's 1024. So, alright, yeah, so I got some beach sand and now you can kind of see the shadows a little bit better. But so you'll see a lot of maps, they kind of have this 256 scheme on their shadow texture size, but I don't really go as high as, well, actually maybe I do. 2048 gives you a really lot better even than maybe, this is what the template map was set to. So if I look at that versus 2048, you can already see it's like, wow, right? So that's really the only thing. I'm going to link this person's videos. Just go through it, make notes. It's awesome. I still go use it. So let me see if there's anything else. So yeah, I do use the sun scale. So the color, you can see how it's kind of shifted orange. If you're making a cool map, sometimes you want to crank it. You know, you can really start making different colors, and you know, there's a lot you can do with the sun scale colorizer right here. I do use that. I do mess with the exposure, but I'm not really going to do it here. You can get different results based on that in conjunction with some of those other settings in that video. The orbit, this is the orbit of the sun. You can mess with that. I generally leave it at default unless you need like some kind of extra, like if you wanted the sun just going over the whole horizon at 360 degrees, you know, the whole time it orbits, then you'd want to mess with this. But for the sake, I usually just leave it. And obviously cast shadows would, you know, disable all shadows in your scene. And then this is your shadow sky brightness, I guess, or what is it? Yeah, scatter sky. So you can kind of get some different results. Look, like I said, check out this video, but it'll be in my description. But you can do all kinds of this. It's just endlessly customizable. So I'm gonna put that back on default. Oop. I'm not gonna mess with this flare scale. That's really if you're just looking directly at the sun, what you see. So I'm just gonna leave that. I haven't really messed with too much of the night settings. That would be interesting to mess with. You could probably do some crazy stuff with the moon. I've never actually seen the moon, so I don't know how the moon is rendered, if it's just lighting or what, but I've never seen a moon in the sky, so I don't know. But then this advanced lighting menu, the only thing I really mess with is this texture size. There's some other things in that video he goes over, like these over dark factors. He increases these all through by a different amount. You can do that. Definitely check out the link in my description. Shadow distance, you can mess with all that too. It's just sometimes it'll affect performance, so it's not necessarily in your best interest, but you know, it could definitely make it look better. But definitely check out his video because he's going to do some stuff that really doesn't hurt performance, but it makes him look great. So, and I'm not really seeing anything else in this menu, so I think I'm going to move on to the clouds, and that's it. Alright, so I can kind of, I'm going to show off these clouds, but to do that I wanted to make this little scene, and to do what I really want to do I gotta use these azimuth settings for the sun, so I guess this is a good time to also show that. So basically the elevation was like, you know, 150 or something. It was like way up here, so in order to get my reference I had to get my elevation down to the horizon. So it just kind of gradually went down. I went to like 100. I guess I could do that way. 200. Oh, see, it was 150. So if I go 160, it's going down. 170. So there we go. It's getting pretty good. And if I want, I can use my azimuth to go like 80. It's going right, so let's go 70. I guess for this example, I'll just mess with the sun size. So it was 1. I'm just going to do like 0.5. Don't want it killing the camera. 0.4 maybe? I don't know. Alright, so out of the box, you can kind of tell the clouds, they're not looking so good. They're just kind of meh, you know, pretty bland, right? Let's see if we can do something about that. So basically, so there's a way you can add cloud stuff, like cloud layer. I don't know, when I do that, I don't know, unless it's adding a texture layer in here somewhere. Maybe that's what it's doing, but I'm not going to try and change all these settings, but as you can tell, just simply one click really was like, whoa. But let me undo that first. I might add that back in later, but what I want to do now first is look at my clouds. So there's some pretty crazy stuff you can just do with the clouds. So let me see. So the first thing right off the bat is you can actually duplicate them. So if I just did duplicate selection, oh, did it even work? I think it's because I was not in object select, so you have to be in object select to do it. And let's try it again, duplicate, there you go. So there's my duplicated cloud layer. So there's 1 and 2. So there, once you know that, now we begin to see we can do more things. So let's see what else we can do. Before I actually do that though, let me animate them and show you how that works. So I'm going to delete that, and we're just going to basically look over here. A couple things you can change, like the exposure. Now 1.5 seems to give the most accurate lighting, but coverage I do change, so you can always go 1. That's obviously 100%, I guess. I think 2. Oh, maybe you can go higher. Oh God, 100. We'll just go like 0.1. Get little fluffies. 0.5. Kind of branches out a little bit if you want it more. I don't know that there's a way to actually animate the amount like that. The best you can do is scroll them. So you create a scrolling animation, which we'll do here. So 0.25 maybe. There you go. I just want a little bit of poofies. I don't want it to be too crazy. So wind speed, you can actually adjust how fast they move. So 0.03 is where it's at. Let's just say 1. Does that do anything? A little bit. You can see like, here, 50. There you go, 50. Like if you wanted a time, you know what I mean, time lapse. 50, but let me go back to 1 here. So the height can be like 10 if you wanted them. I usually do like 10 or 20. What is it, 20? Something. You can see the default height isn't quite realistic. That gives you a little better results. So maybe I'll leave them at 20 for this layer. And then I can build upon that. So if I'm looking at wind speed, right? So I have wind speed here. It could be 3. It's too high. It's too much. You don't want them that high. Like 1. I'll do 1. Let me bring the height down to like 15. I'll bring the height to 20. And then let me create a new layer here. I'm going to duplicate this again now. And now let me raise this height to like 30. And let me adjust the wind speed back to like 20.25 or so, just something smaller. Let me give it a little more coverage. Oh, way too much. Was it 0.5? 0.4? Maybe. Let me give my first one less coverage. 0.2. 0.1. Let's see. So between 0.2 and 0.3, you get a pretty big bump in coverage. So I would say probably between your best numbers will be like 0.2, 0.23, something like 0.25. Let's go to 0.3. That's like almost looks like 50% like coverage. So I wouldn't go really much above that if I wanted to create this cool effect, but go like 0.2 maybe. Let's try that. Then I'll do the duplicate. And I can even mess with it further, but anyway, they'll be animating. So another little trick, if you wanted to say make different exposures, like you could set the second cloud layer to 2, first cloud layer could be 1, and you kind of get this little different exposed effect in your clouds. That could be kind of cool if you wanted it. And if you wanted, I mean, you could change like the base color of one of them, I guess, if you like, wanted to push one of them red or something. It's all about just pushing it. If you don't go too crazy, just be subtle. You can probably get some pretty crazy results, but I usually just kind of just gently. I don't want to do anything crazy, but the red's kind of cool if you're in the sunset, but maybe I'll leave it. And then if I wanted to, I could start pushing the coverage, like 0.3. Oh, that's the wrong one. I wanted to push the red coverage, I think. Yeah. Push the red, 0.3. Associate. It might be a little much, so 0.25. Your control is very granular. You can make, I could probably even go 251 and it would do it. I'm not going to do it, but you can go very small adjustments. It's very cool. And another thing to mention, a lot of cases you can select multiple objects in the scene tree, and then you might see some things in here that appear different, and some of these settings you can change, which will affect all of them. Other settings it doesn't work for, like you notice when I have a multiple selected, my numerical values are gone, but if I select one, I can start changing them. So there's some things you can do on the fly, like adjusting multiple things at the same time, and that, for objects obviously it becomes even more. You could do different things, but so now this thing's kind of I guess, built more or less. I mean, you can still tweak it and mess with things, but the other thing would be like the texture. So there's quite a few different cloud textures. Oh, why am I looking in Utah? Hold on. Okay, so interestingly, on the template map by default, you notice the texture for the cloud layer. It's going to the Utah map. So all of these little fluffy textures or whatever, those are all going to be in Utah. Some of these things you'll see they're used across the board in different situations, but for this example, I can actually change these. Like there's different. Let me not affect that one. Let me do a new one here. I like not disturbing the ones I've already created because these will be a duplicate. You notice it probably made one of them red. Now you don't want to make too many of these. They will start hurting performance. So I try not to do too many. I'll do like 2 or 3 and that's it. And leave it at that because there's so many other things in my scene that are going to start tanking in performance. If I start throwing in multiple cloud layers, no one's going to be able to enjoy. So we're not going to do too many, but you know, just to show you, I could do new texture like if I wanted. So that's a white one. So let me just temporarily set it to like blue so we can see it maybe. But if I did like that's a fluffy horizon, that maybe let's see horizon. Whoa. That's not what I want, although that could work in some situations. Let's see. Texture. There's supposed to be one that's like right at the horizon, but the green is really good to, or the different color is good to help you figure out where they're sitting in the sky, you know. But I could also mess with the coverage. So let's see. Fluffy horizon I thought was good. So right now it's kind of like there. So what would the coverage be if I did like 0.4? It's really just getting that area. So let's see. I don't think that's going to do anything. So, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, usually the way it works, I always take what I can get. So if I wanted to just now push this, maybe I could just do like, you know, I don't know, something more subtle. I want them to be too like, I mean, that could work. But that's just playing around stuff. The effect is there and the options are there if you need them, which is all I was really trying to kind of go over. Now, I'm not really going to go into this. There's a little texture direction. So, I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time more, but you can actually adjust some of this stuff. So let's see if I can create a cool effect with just this in one layer. Well, the text scale is kind of cool because it gives you a little bit of flexibility on how you want your clouds to look. The text scale looks like a 3-layer deal. I don't know how that plays in, but you get some pretty unique looking clouds if you just simply manipulate that. One, so I'm just going back to the default here. Plenty of flexibility there. Well, I said I wasn't going to spend time, but apparently I am. So the texture speed, that kind of is like the scroll speed I was talking about. So it's defaulting here. If I did like 0.004, you know, you get, I mean, you can, I'm going to go more extreme. So I'll just do like, let me just remember 0.002 is what it was. So if I go 1 on that layer, some of these aren't set to the same, like see how that's 0.0025. This is where I usually like to go by based on where it was, and then I'll work from there. So I'll kind of branch off. Like if I wanted to set this as like, you know, 0.008 to double it, you know, and then I'll go here. So I want to double this as well. So to double it, I would have to do 0.050. That's double that. Texture speed to double that would be 0.07 something roughly. So you can't really increase them all at once, unfortunately. You can use math to make it happen, but you know, so now I have kind of like this little scrolling pattern or whatever. It's obviously too fast, so probably don't want to have that much, so doubling it might be too much, you know. But that's just the texture speed. That's kind of what it does, and so that's for the textures. I guess that's really it. So let me go back to see what happens when I add my final little element, which was the add sign, you know, the cloud layer, which I never really understand what that does. Can I cloud layer? Where is that? I mean, that looks super cool, but I don't know. How do I access this again? Has an ID number, cloud layer 1. How do I? It's not in the scene tree. I don't know. Not really sure what. Oh, what's this? Texture, art, skies, clouds, normal displacement. So it's displacing the clouds that I have somehow. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's why it looks different, is it's displacing them. If you know what displacement is, it's a Blender thing where you can displace textures and stuff, but I don't really know how to access, like if I, does that mean every? So now how do I get back to that inspector window? I don't know how. If I add that, I don't know how to take it away or adjust it further. I mean, I can control Z to get rid of it. I'm scared of things that I do and I don't know how to back out of, so if that's a one-way street, well, so be it, but let's see. Let me start again. So yeah, I don't know. I can't really wrap my head around this stupid guy, but cloud layer, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I can't really recommend using it, but it looks cool, so I'm going to keep it. I don't know how to get out of it, but we're just going to keep it. Like if I click it again, what happens? Another cloud layer. So how do I remove cloud layers? It's an ID, has an ID, 42484. What's, oh, I can't even get to that cloud layer anymore in the inspector window, it's gone. So I'm back to default. If I add a cloud layer, has a unique ID, copy ID. Cloud layer 1, what if I pasted that here? I don't get anything. It's not even in the scene tree. How am I supposed to get to the cloud layer then? So it's like a one-way street, guys. If you want to use cool, awesome cloud layers, you can't remove them unless you control Z, which you won't be able to do after you restart, I guess. I don't know. Wish I had a workaround for that, man. That stinks. But I gotta end this video, so I'm just gonna like take a cool screenshot with like some cloud layers, I guess. Look at those poofy cloud layers, man. Blocking out the sun on a one-way street. And we're gonna do a control save. I'm gonna go back to my game. Oh, we get a screenshot here before I go. I'll show you how to make screenshots, man. There. So I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna use my shift and what is it? Alt, mouse wheel. Oh yeah, Alt and mouse wheel helps you slow down the camera. And I'm actually gonna, let me go full screen here. And then I'm gonna do, so I'm using holding right click to move my camera, but WSAD, and I'm just gonna do a Alt U to get rid of the thing, and I'm gonna do hold shift and do page up and page down will give me more field of view. And I can still move my camera in that mode, so if I do more field of view, usually I'll try and get all the way out. Like if I wanted to get this grass and this reflection, all this good stuff with the reflection, I want to get all the elements, so I'll probably, you know, try and get my subject in line a little more, but you know, do that. Well, press J to unpause, but that's pretty much it. There's my screenshot, I guess. Oh, something like that. I don't know. That could be cool, but might be too much field of view. I think the field of view needs to be less. I don't know, but the clouds are cool. The tree is really looking good. But all right, if you guys have any questions, but If you guys have any issues, I'm more than willing to take a look at your map and I can solve if you're having a problem. You just gotta like send it to me on Google Drive. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I think I'm done making these videos. If you have any other concerns, let me know about the forests. They can get pretty crazy to figure out, but once you start tinkering, I think you guys get it. See you later.